Welcome to Flashpoints. I'm Jeff Pegues, joined by CBS News senior national security analyst Juan Zarate.
Hello, Jeff.
This is sort of off our beat a little bit, but this is a story that is really gaining traction, and it may at some point become an issue that the administration has to deal with.
Yeah.
There is diplomacy involved here, an extradition treaty involved here. We're talking about Cecil the Lion.
A lot of attention.
Yeah, a lot of attention on this. Where do you think this one is going to end up? We're going to chat about this a little bit.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. You know, it's starting to feel a little bit like pitchfork justice, where the public attention around this and the demands for justice around this hunter is growing. And you're absolutely right. The administration is going to have to respond to it. But I think at the start, at least, the law and the facts are going to have to dictate. You know, what actually happened here, and did this individual break any known laws and prescriptions? Put aside the morality or whether or not we should be hunting lions at all. Secondly, what does the extradition treaty actually allow for? And different treaties allow for different things. Frankly, I have not looked at our extradition treaty with Zimbabwe. I don't think I ever have.
Well, listen, I mean, Zimbabwe is a southern African nation. I actually lived there, grew up there for a bit, so I'm familiar with Zimbabwe and its leadership, Robert Mugabe, who has led that country for the past, 30 years or so.
Yeah. Under sanctions.
Under sanctions, so the relationship with the U.S. is chilly.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people here, certainly in this country, who feel if you send Walter Palmer to Zimbabwe, is he going to get a fair trial?
Yeah. And I think the answer is probably no. I think the Mugabe regime is seen as autocratic, in control of the judiciary, in control of elements of the economy, and so there's a lot of outrage around this case, and so it'd be hard to get sort of justice in an objectively good court system, legal system. In Zimbabwe, probably even more difficult. That said, I do think the facts and the law will drive this initially. But as you said, there's a public and diplomatic context to this. The president was just in Africa, where in part he talked about the poaching issue. He signed an executive order tied to the ban on ivory trade and commerce in the U.S. There's been a lot of attention on the increasing extinction rates potentially of great species like elephants and rhinos. That's been a bigger issue these days. I've been involved in some of that. And there's more popular sort of demand for justice around these issues. And so this case falls into that environment. And you're absolutely right that at some point diplomacy and reaction to public attention will play a part in this.
Yeah, it's really interesting how certain, and you worked in an administration, you've worked in a White House, it's interesting how certain stories catch steam and just generate attention, and they keep growing, and at some point you got to step in and you have to address it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it may not be an Iran deal, but this is one of those stories that a lot of people in this country certainly care about.
Yeah, and it has broader implications, right? Usually when you have these kinds of cases, it's forgive me, but it's a flashpoint.
Yeah.
And it connects with other themes and issues that are in the environment. And so, as I said, the poaching issue has been growing hot for the last couple of years because of the rate of extinction of these great species. I was just helping host a conference 2 weeks ago here in Washington on this issue and the tie between poaching and terrorist groups and militant groups and conflict in Africa. And so there's a ton of legislative attention already on these issues, a lot of conservation attention, and a real question as to whether or not we should be allowing the hunting of these great species, the numbers of which are diminishing at an astonishing rate. And so this issue, the personality of Cecil, which was being studied by researchers at Oxford, the question of big game preserves and the environment in Africa, the president's visit to Africa, all sort of gels at a moment like this. And that's why it sparks and I think raises broader policy issues.
Yeah, and it's there is a growing White House petition online. So this is a story that we'll certainly be talking about for at least the next several days, maybe months, maybe longer.
And you know this, Jeff, from your coverage of the Department of Justice, they're going to have to address this.
Exactly.
And the State Department will as well.
Yeah. For Juan, I'm Jeff,
Thank you, Jeff.
And that is Flashpoints.